Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Health in Harlem here on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. And today we're going to start off with a little question for you guys. And actually, before that, I want to say how disappointed I am. And why am I disappointed? I'm disappointed because it's almost 2020 and we still don't have flying cars. And I was expecting that. And I wanted that since I was a kid, and apparently it's not happening yet. But we also don't have the cure to cancer, and I'm still not able to print a pizza for my CD-ROM drive like I wanted to when I was younger.
That's a little ambitious, don't you think?
A little ambitious, yeah, but we're smart enough. The technology is getting there. I mean, why hasn't it been there yet? We have drones, we have mechanical arms that can learn how to cook like Chef Ramsay. We have the ability to have self-driving cars. We have amphibious vehicles. They could go underwater or on the water. We have flying cars. But we don't have cars that are just like, the Jetson family. They just have wings. So I think we're getting there, but we're not there yet. And in the meantime, since we can't print out the pizza from our CD-ROM, we have something that's getting pretty close. We have our 3D printing. And what's funny about this is that we're moments away from hitting the market with this ability to print our steaks and our burgers in a laboratory setting. So we can 3D print meat. And that's something that we're about to start releasing into the public and make it something that everyone can consume. And I'm a little bit concerned about this. I mean, it's great. The companies are doing this because we're not going to be harming animals to feed our overconsumption of them. And but the cons, though, are that we're printing out meat. And how safe could that be? I'm a little sketched out just listening to that and entertaining that idea. Because if we look at the past technologies, when things like this come out, and it has to do with our food, like processing meat, like using preservatives in our meat, like GMOs, like all these things that we now feel like, how did we ever put this into our body? And now we have the reverse thing where people want to be gluten-free, calorie-free, fat-free, lactose-free. Basically, they just want to eat air. And then we have this weird lack of balance that is currently the status quo in the U.S. So I'm kind of interested. Would you guys be willing to eat a steak or meat that has been printed in a laboratory? And I think it's a pretty interesting question to ask and think about. DJ, would you do it?
I don't know, man. I feel like we reached to the point. It's like not even a matter of should we, not yet, but it's like can we? We're just like pumping these new technology out, and I'm with you, man. Like we need to speed things up. But printed meat, I don't know. It's like you ever walk into the kitchen, your mom's grilling stuff. You smell that richness. Yeah. I don't know if it's the same coming out of a tube.
I mean, I don't think so either. I'm sketched out, but we want to hear what you guys think. So please call us in the studio hotline 212-650-6903. Tell us how you feel about this, and if you're an expert in the field, we'd like to hear more. And you can also always comment on our Facebook live stream, which you can find at facebook.com/Health in Harlem. And once again, the number to the studio is 212-650-6903. So DJ, you said that you aren't necessarily excited about this idea. You like the prospect.
Yeah.
But you're not getting ready, getting your fork and knife. You're not salivating at the idea of this, right? So I feel like I'm in the same boat where it's cool. I think it's a nice idea, but I'm not trying to be anyone's guinea pig and see if it's going to be healthy for you by testing it out for this company. And there are a couple of companies that you mentioned that actually are gearing up to do this very soon, and they're about to start to 3D print this biological tissue and the organs from living cells and sell it to consumers.
Yeah, so like the technology that they're using, when we see these tissues that are being 3D printed, it's kind of replicating that technology. but for our food. And, the idea of 3D printing itself, like you said, we're using real cells to, kind of layer and stack to form this organic matter that we can, use ourselves, which it's like...
What a weird concept. Hey, it sounds science fiction, but we're there. We're there. So now instead of 3D printing, let's say an ear, something that usually will not grow back after an accident because it's made of cartilage, or let's say your nervous tissue. So let's say if you have diabetic neuropathy, and I know a lot of people would have this. So if your nervous cells are not responding in the same way that they should in, let's say, your fingertips and your feet, your toes, because you have diabetes, you would be able to regenerate this nervous tissue that was now damaged or destroyed through this process of 3D printing them using living cells. And so we're basically recycling life in a way that we deem appropriate. We're playing the part of God, in my opinion. Not that there's anything right or wrong with that. It's just a matter of realizing the amount of power that this prospect has. And I guess that what's important in this decision-making process, if we're figuring out whether or not we are going to move forward with this idea of eating meats that have been printed in a laboratory, we should figure out how they're doing it exactly, right? So as soon as we get back from break, we're going to explain the science behind this process. And in the meantime, we're going to leave you with 2 questions to think about, get your mind rolling. So the first question, I need you guys to start to think about what a stem cell is. And if you have the answer and you want to call in, please do so. And the next question is, what is the cell theory of life? So this is a theory that we are going to use as the basis of this whole technology. And as soon as we get back from break, even if you don't know the answer to that, we will answer it for you. And hopefully you'll walk out of here knowing more things than you did when you walked in. And we are so happy to get back on the air here at Health in Harlem. So please don't touch the dial. We'll be right back after this short 2-minute break.
Don't touch that dial. Keep it locked on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Harlem has its own radio station, WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
You're invited to celebrate the birthday of Dr. Ruth Singletary on Saturday, August 25th from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. The birthday celebration will feature Reverend Luther Barnes and Choir of North Carolina, Catherine Miller, Bishop Cooper, and Fire, the Faithful Harmonizer Juniors, Little J and the Spiritual Boys, and Dr. Ruth Singletary and the WEDC group. Dr. Ruth's birthday celebration is hosted by WHCR's Brother Bill and yours truly, Sister Virginia Cotton. That's Dr. Ruth Singletary's birthday celebration on Saturday, August the 25th from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. held at the Eastwood Manor in the Baby Grand Room. The Eastwood Manor is located 3371 Eastchester Road in the Bronx. For tickets and more information, call 347-346-8365. That's 347-346-8365. I'm so excited.
Harlem Community Radio teams up with the world-famous Apollo Theater to celebrate Harlem Week on Wednesday, August 15th. WHCR's DJ Justice will kick things off by spinning under the iconic marquee. Selena Hill of Let Your Voice Be Heard will co-host the night's performance, along with the gangster of comedy, Capone, and a lineup of terrific amateur artists. Yours truly, Tina Dixon, host of the Sunday Night Praise Break, will be the evening's guest artist. Tickets are half off for Harlem during Amateur Night at the Apollo Salutes Harlem Week. Harlem residents get the added Harlem Week bonus of experiencing all amateur night shows throughout August for a discounted price. That's half off for Harlem. To participate, residents must present a valid photo ID and proof of residence when purchasing at the Apollo box office. Restrictions may apply. Don't miss WHCR's 90.3 FM's DJ Justice, Selena Hill, and Tina Dixon when Amateur Night salutes Harlem Week for Wednesday, August the 15th at the world-famous Apollo Theater, located at 253 West 125th Street. For more information, visit apollotheater.org or call 212-531-5305. That's 212-531-5305.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is another episode of Health in Harlem here on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. And today we're talking about 3D printing meals. And specifically, we're talking about meat. And if you're like me, you're a meat lover and you're an animal lover. And if you're a meat lover and an animal lover, you have this internal conflict where you want to have the foods that you love, but you don't want to harm the animals that you love too. So in this case, you have this alternative option that's coming out right now where you can 3D print bio-tissue. What an interesting concept. So you could take this thing that we were using originally for the regeneration of body parts that are, let's say our kidneys that we would have to wait months, years, or almost sometimes you never get one if you're on an organ transplant list, and now you could just print it out. And how nice is that? You can have an unlimited supply. And now the only issue is we're going to use this surgical technique that we've been developing and use it for our food and then put it into our body. And at Health in Harlem, we are just as concerned about the things that we put into our body as you should be, because what we put in is usually what's going to come out, right? And we want our bodies to be healthy, living, and strong for as long as possible, which is why we come here every week to make sure that that is the case. So before the break, we were talking about these two guiding principles of this technology. We want to know how they're doing it so we can decide if we want to eat it. And these two technologies that we were talking, this principle that we were talking about is the cell theory of life and stem cells. And I'm sure you guys have heard of stem cells before. You might even have an opinion on them, just like you would on GMOs, genetically modified organisms. But if you don't really know what's happening in both of these types of ideas, you can't really have an educated opinion on it. So let's give you some more information on these ideas. So DJ, what is the cell theory of life?
Well, I haven't heard that in a while, like 8th grade biology, I believe.
Right, it's like Bio 101.
Yeah, so give me a second. You said...
The cell theory of life. So we have three basic ideas here. One would be that the living things are made of at least one cell, one or more of them.
Right.
That's the first idea. Then you have this next idea that you're going to have these cells come together to be able to make a larger organism. So these are going to increase the scales of life, and you build up these one cells from that first idea, like a single bacteria, and that makes up your multicellular organisms like you and me.
Right.
And this means that we're going to go, let's go backwards actually. So the scales of anatomy. So you and I are organisms. We are human beings, a species, right? And our life depends on the organ systems that allow us to do the things that we do. Those organ systems are made of organs, which are made of tissue, and tissues are just going to be a whole bunch of cells that work together to do a specialized function. And they work as a unit. And usually cells that do similar things are organized into this similar place. So these cells that are doing these tissues that are doing these specialized functions are going to be guided to do that based on their development. So while they're developing, we have differentiation happening, which means that you go from this stem cell that can do everything to becoming this specialist. And to become a specialist, you have to be trained, just like in real life. So then you have this last idea of the theory of life, which says that all new cells have to come from pre-existing cells. So so this is kind of similar to the idea that energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred. So life cannot be created or destroyed, only transferred. So we're going to take one living cell and make multiple living cells. So now we can kind of get back into this stem cell idea. So what I'm saying here is that our skin cells or our heart muscle cells are all stemming from other cells. And yes, that was a purposeful pun. I want you guys to hear the stem part of that sentence. So we're going from a single stem cell to becoming specialist. And how does this process work? Well, let's use an analogy to help understand this. So just like society, we started off with a very small population. Let's say we're on an island, we're stranded, we have 1 or 2 people there. So now both of those people are going to work together to do the same functions, same tasks, so that they could survive. But as you end up with a community of, let's say, 20, 30 people, now it might make more sense to start to specialize in your function. So to start to have specific tasks for every person. So if I am the kind of person who loves to farm, I would love to do it all day long. So why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I be the one who farms all day long? And if you like to build, then you build. And then you build the house for me and I'll provide the food for you. So now we're working as a community doing specialized tasks, and it's a lot more efficient in that way. So from there, that analogy, we're going to go to this next idea of stem cells. So these specialized people, your farmers, your builders, your nurses, your doctors, lawyers, they've been trained all their lives to perform their function. But they weren't born with these positions. They had to train for it. And as they went on in their education and training, they became more and more specialized, just like these workers. So you start off with this stem cell, which in my little analogy that I'm trying to give you guys is kind of like being in middle school. Up until middle school, everyone learns the alphabets. Everyone learns how to read, write, arithmetic, social studies. It's a general education system. So this is what's happening with our cells as well. You start off with the stem cell and you go through this general education. And in this state, you're very flexible. If when I'm in middle school, I decided I wanted to be a lawyer instead of pursuing medicine, it wouldn't be very difficult to say I'm going to pursue law. And I have high school, college, everywhere else to then pursue it. But if I started in middle school and said that, if I was in college and I said that I'm going to switch from medicine to law, that would set me back a lot more. I wouldn't be as flexible at that point in my development. So whenever you're beginning your development, you're very flexible, which is great because you need it to have a blank slate because now they have no specific line of work. So your stem cells are like these naive middle school students. They don't know what the world's about. They've got this general education and they're very flexible to different ideas and different paths that they could go on in their career. And as they go to high school, they get less flexible college, less flexible, go through graduate school, specialties, whatever they are doing. The more they go on down their road that they've selected, they have this determined path. So this is where we're going to bring it back to these stem cells and get out of the analogy. So whenever your cell is a stem cell that is full of potential, it can go anywhere. We say that it is totally full of potential, totipotent. And then as they progress to high school from middle school, they have many options, which we're going to say they're pluripotent. and they could go down different paths. And now we're going to get even more narrower. They get to college, and we call them multipotent. This is where you've kind of selected your line of work. So let's say I get a bachelor's in science. I'm going to work in the science field. They have a cell line. After that, you will specialize even more and become a progenitor. And from a progenitor, the name tells you that this is going to generate other cells from the same line. Meaning, if I'm a cardiac progenitor, I will continue to make cardiac cells, but I'm not making fat cells anymore. I'm specifically generating my lineage of cells. Now, lastly, you're going to reach this point where you're fully differentiated. This means that you are the expert of your field. You are the specialist. You are world-renowned. And when you're world-renowned, unless you're Michael Jordan or some other freak of nature that's extraordinary, you're not going to be going back in time through your development and underdeveloping so that you can then change your career path. Or at least it's very, very rare. And up until the late 2000s, we thought that this process of going from middle school to the end of your expertise, peak of your career, is a one-way street, that it can't be reversed. But then we had the work of Dr. John B. Gordon and Shinya Yamanaka, who I believe is a Japanese researcher, and they figured out the way to reprogram these cells that are fully mature to become pluripotent, or have the potential to go into a plurality or many different lines. So instead of just a cardiac cell, it could become a fat, it could become a skin cell, it could become a couple of different types. And actually, for their work, they received the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 2012. And now we know that we could take a fat cell and turn it into a nervous cell, which we know does not regenerate if it is damaged. And this is these two things, the facts that cells make new cells and that all living things are made up of this basic unit of life, which are cells. We're going to use these stem cells as the ink for our 3D printers that are going to print our steak, which is a living tissue. So we're going to use the printer with stem cells as ink to make muscle tissue, which makes up our steak. And if you're mind blown like we are, then you'll want to stick around for the next break. After we come back, I'm going to be explaining the steps to how they print it. So now you know the principles behind it, but we're going to be talking about the stepwise process for how we go from not having a steak in front of us to hitting a button on our computer and we have a juicy steak. Well, it's not that simple, but we'll see after the break. So please keep it locked. You're listening to 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Harlem, please take care.
We are on the air. Keep this frequency clear. Do not attempt to adjust your dial.
Don't touch that dial. Keep it locked on WHCR 90.3 FM.
You need to keep it locked.
The voice of Harlem.
Turn it up.
WHCR salutes South African trumpeter, singer, and activist, the late Hugh Masekela, whose music called for the end of apartheid. Masekela gained prominence in the South African music scene in the 1950s when he became the pioneer of South African jazz as a member of the Jazz Epistles. After a move to the United States in 1960, he gained international acclaim with his hit song, Grazing in the Grass, which featured a peppy instrumental with a twirling trumpet hook and jangling cowbell rhythm.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Health in Harlem. We made that break a little bit shorter than usual because we want to get right back to this topic. So before we left off for our little commercial break, we mentioned that we are talking about the ability to bioprint meat and what this means for our health. Would you guys eat it? I'm curious. I know that we have many people streaming online right now, and I'm wondering, for the people who are, could you comment on the Facebook live stream or call us at 212-650-6903 and let us know, would you eat this lab printed meat? So if you had a steak that you hit a button on your computer and it came out, would you eat it or would you feel sketched out by that idea? So DJ, before we went on break, we spoke about the principles of stem cells and how they could be used as ink to print out tissue. But now let's get to the actual food part of this. So how do they do this? How do these companies that want to start up and create these meats that we're going to sell now to the general public, how are they actually going through the process of printing out this steak?
Well, I mean, the process is just like how it would be for any other tissues or organs. They're kind of mimicking what the other scientists did. So they all have a basic similar origin. So first, what they're going to do is they're going to look at a tissue or, we're going to look at the muscle, whatever they want to create. And they're going to look at how what the composition of it is, like the architecture, how does it look, the kind of elements that go into it, the physical elements, that is. And they create a design, like on a computer, like a web program. Next, they use the bioink, as you were mentioning, developed from those living cells of that tissue. And that's what they're going to use to print out this artificial material. And they do often use those stem cells, as you mentioned, because they're easy to adapt and, they can specialize and have a higher function.
Nice.
Yeah, so then what they do is they layer this bio ink on top of hydrogel, which is this water, it's like a soluble gel that they use to kind of hold its structure and integrity. And layers are put on. And what it does is the printer follows the design or program that was on the computer. And it creates this structure, this three-dimensional. It's vertically stacked. And with the hydrogel, there's able to be spaces and channels, just like a real tissue would have. And then eventually, the hydrogel is washed away. So then you're left with just the ink. And it's left over time to mature and develop and grow. And what happens is it ends up like compressing and becoming this three-dimensional figure. And the results are that these cells have similar densities and have multiple cell types and feel and look like real tissue.
Wow. That's insane to really grasp that idea. So for those of you who are not in the science field, just to kind of explain, what she basically said is that you're going to 3D print out this meat in the same way that you would 3D print almost anything else, as if it was plastic. You're going to go two-dimensional layers at a time, stacking them over each other, and then you're using a solvent, which is something that things are going to be dissolved in, and it's a hydrogel. And this hydrogel is going to hold together the structure of what you were building, and then it's going to eventually be removed from the end product, which is the steak that you're supposed to be eating. And I'm kind of curious to know what's in this hydrogel other than the water. What's the gel part? Is that safe to consume? Are there any kind of side effects from the heating up process of printing or the cooling and developing process? It looks the same. It might smell, taste the same, but I wonder if the fact that it's not natural actually means that it wouldn't be safe for consumption and lead to some kind of side effects down the road.
Yeah, definitely. And we know how, our cells regenerate really fast, but with this technology, they don't have a determined amount of time. So through chemical and mechanical means, they can even force this maturization and growth. So even more things are being added that we don't know.
Right. So I'm kind of curious to know, now that you guys know the steps that are involved in printing these steaks, burgers, meats in general, would you or would you not actually eat this if it was served at a restaurant? So call in at 212-650-6903 and let us know. And let's start talking about these companies that are trying to bring it to market. So lab-grown meat. In the U.S., we eat about 270 pounds of meat per person annually. We are the second highest meat-eating country in the world. And this goes back to a joke that a stand-up comedian from France made about America when he was touring the country. He was like, the funny thing about Americans is that they'll go to an all-you-can-eat buffet. And the funny thing about that is that it's not the all you want to eat, it's the all you can eat. So like, think about that idea. We want to consume to the point of physical ability, not to the point of when we're full. So we just want to be able to reach this level of overconsumption where we're eating 270 pounds of meat per person. Wow. So that's more than what I weigh. So so many companies are working on developing this technology to create the meat for human consumption. And the prototypes have been consisted of protein and muscle fiber. And they also are starting to include blood, fat, and connective tissue, all of which are going to add to the taste and texture of the meat. But the main concerns are still, even if it looks like it, even if it's made of the same things, are you willing to eat it? And that's the end question. You know, are they going to be in business? And so the companies we're talking about are Modern Meadow, Hampton Creek, and those are the main two that are starting to hit the market. And the co-founder of Modern Meadow says that in the case of meat, if you think about a hamburger, its lateral dimensions are much bigger than its thickness. So that makes the printing considerably simpler. So we're not dealing with incredibly complex 3D structures. Nothing is crazy about the printing process itself. It's just the idea that we're making a living tissue, you know? And some people are starting to chime in right now saying that they wouldn't eat it. So we have Nurse Jean commenting in saying nope. And I'm probably with you. Vegan for me. I mean, I don't know. Would this be considered vegan? That's another question. It's not coming from an animal. It's just using the cells.
That's also, a question like, where are they getting these animal cells? It's like, we don't want to harm animals. I guess that's what we're trying to avoid, but you still need to get these cells from them somehow.
Right. So I wonder, like you're saying, if it's going to be embryonic stem cells or if they're going to be able to induce the pluripotency by taking, let's say, one of their fat cells and making them into a stem cell that can then become anything else. So I'm not too sure how they're doing it, but I'm sure that it'll be better than the slaughter that they have going on right now. Now, these other companies, the whole hope or the idea that they're trying to sell is that they want to serve food without harming animals. And they're going to be producing poultry first before getting to the steaks for at least Hampton Creek. So they're going to be going into printing chicken meat. And so if you're like me and love chicken, this should be a great solution, probably cost efficiently, to be able to get as much chicken as you want without hurting those chickens. But, they're going to be expanding to meat and seafood soon. And meat and seafood are a little bit more complicated than chicken because instead of lean muscle, you also are getting a lot more of this fat and other connective tissue that is going to be found in the meat. So I'm assuming it's a little bit harder to grow as of now. So we know that it's possible, and we know that they're about to move to make it to hit the market.
Yeah,
and now
definitely it's happening. It's coming out soon.
Right. Whether or not we like it, it is going to be a future. And now we need to decide if we're going to be one of the consumers. So what are the advantages or disadvantages of consuming this fake meat? We're going to take a short break and allow you guys to kind of sit there and let this settle in. I want you to internalize this idea and think about what are the pros and cons of this technological advancement. And if you have an opinion that you want to share, please call us on the air at 212-650-6903. And if you want to shout out or want to share your opinion online, the link is facebook.com/health in Harlem. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back after this short break. And we do have a caller right now.
To celebrate the birthday of Dr. Ruth Singletary on Saturday, August 25th from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. The birthday celebration will feature Reverend Luther Barnes and Choir of North Carolina, Catherine Miller, Bishop Cooper, and Fire. The Faithful Harmonizer Juniors, Lil J and the Spiritual Boys, and Dr. Ruth Singletary and the WEDC group. Dr. Ruth's birthday celebration is hosted by WHCR's Brother Bill and yours truly, Sister Virginia Cotton. That's Dr. Ruth Singletary's birthday celebration on Saturday, August the 25th from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. Held at the Eastwood Manor in the Baby Grand Room.
Harlem Community Radio teams up with the world-famous Apollo Theater to celebrate Harlem Week on Wednesday, August 15th. WHCR's DJ Justice will kick things off by spinning under the iconic marquee. Selena Hill of Let Your Voice Be Heard will co-host the night's performance, along with the gangster of comedy, Capone, and a lineup of terrific amateur artists. Yours truly, Tina Dixon, host of the Sunday Night Praise Break, will be the evening's guest artist. Tickets are half off for Harlem during Amateur Night at the Apollo Salutes Harlem Week. Harlem residents get the added Harlem Week bonus of experiencing all Amateur Night shows throughout August for a discounted price. That's half off for Harlem. To participate, residents must present a valid photo ID and proof of residence when purchasing at the Apollo box office. Restrictions may apply. Don't miss WHCR's 90.3 FM's DJ Justice, Selena Hill, and Tina Dixon when Amateur Night salutes Harlem Week for Wednesday, August the 15th at the world-famous Apollo Theater, located at 253 West 125th Street. For more information, visit apollotheater.org or call 212-531-5305. That's 212-531-5305.
Okay, let's put you on air then. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, you are on air. How are you doing, Maria?
Oh, good. How are you?
All right, can't complain. So, have you been listening to the show so far? Did you have any questions about this lab meat that we've been talking about? Or did you want to say if whether or not you would actually eat this if it was served on your plate?
Probably not.
How come?
Only because I don't really eat meat.
So you don't eat meat in general, and this isn't going to change your mind.
I barely trust the meat I buy at markets, so I don't know if I trust 3D printed meat.
So when you're saying that you don't trust the meat in general, are you talking about the antibiotic meat? Are you talking about you only have free roaming organic meat? Or you're just saying meat in general is something that you've now put behind you because of what you've been seeing in the marketplace? Maria?
Yeah. No, I think it's mostly because what I've been seeing online and in documentaries and whatnot. The other day, I read an article about compound traces of N-nitrosyl dimethylamine being found in traces of meat, and that's been proven to be a carcinogen.
Right.
So, I just lost trust in all meat products.
There's definitely, less concern you have for the animals this way because, although they are using chemicals, we're not harming the animals, and they might not need as much preservatives and those kind of chemicals to save it. So maybe this might turn you. Maybe you'll know what a hamburger tastes like,
And Maria, I'm just wondering, what did you say was found in the meat? Just so that I would like to look that up, actually.
Yeah, it's N-nitroso-dimethylamine.
Okay. Diethyl or dimethyl?
Dimethyl.
Dimethylamine. Okay. I'll look that up and I'll definitely get back to you. We might have to do another show on that. But in the meantime, thank you so much for sharing your opinion on the matter and joining this discussion. If anyone else would like to tell us whether or not they would eat this lab meat, we would love to hear it, your opinion, and please join the discussion. Thank you so much, Maria, for tuning in to Health in Harlem, and we hope to hear back from you soon.
Okay, have a good day.
You too. Have a nice night. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us, Maria, once again. So, back to our discussion. We're trying to figure out the pros and cons to moving forward with this idea of printing out meat. So, DJ, what are some advantages to doing this?
I mean, definitely, like you mentioned earlier, in terms of organ donation, these substances have the potential to just completely erase that idea. And, we can replace our own organs with this 3D printer technology. There's a stat here that in 2009, 154,000 patients were registered for a human organ transplant, and only 18% of those people received it.
So less than 1 in 5 people will receive the organ after being on the list. So that means 4 out of 5 people, or actually more than that, will not receive the organ in the year that they sign up.
Yeah, and then in most circumstances, they'll just, not survive.
Wow.
So we're talking about technology that can save countless lives, And in addition to that, even if those people do get those transplants they need, sometimes their bodies might reject it. The cells might not be compatible. So again, if we have this technology, we can make cells, alter it, specifically for what these people need.
Right.
Let's say if you need a kidney cell, you're not going to take it out of like your liver or something,
Yeah. So like whenever you're getting stuff from anyone else, your cells have specific proteins on their surface that tell your body, it's like a name tag. It says, this is me. And if your body's immune system doesn't recognize the name tag, it says, wait a second, you don't belong here. And an immune response is launched, and sometimes it'll attack and destroy the organ that was just transplanted. But we've definitely moved past that in the U.S. We do a lot of testing beforehand. But in developing countries, this is a much bigger issue. But in general, why even go through all this screening? You could use the person's own cells to do that, or you would be able to just create them with the exact name tags that the cells of the own person already had. So that's definitely a good reason to move forward with this bioprinting for organ transplants and for surgical reasons. But I'm still not convinced about the food. But yeah, let's keep going.
I mean, also in addition to, think about how many animals, are suffering in these slaughterhouses and, are treated unfairly. I mean, we get to eat the meat. That's great. But think about where these animals are coming from. And also, animals in labs that are being tested. If we have, like human skin grafts and like cosmetic companies, we can use those instead of harming these animals.
So in addition to harming the animals, my biggest concern is, what if these companies harm us? What if they give us something without the testing and we end up being harmed by consuming it? So who's liable then? Who's going to be helping me with my health problems from the meat that they claimed was healthy? And I'm not saying that it can't be healthy or in either direction. I'm just saying I'm a little bit more skeptical because I'm not trying to be anyone's guinea pig for something like this. There
definitely needs to be a lot more like actual tests. There haven't been that many like human trials because of that exact issue. They don't want to harm the public, but I mean, with time, who knows? So
some other than the ethical issues that we want to talk about, we also have the kind of the benefit that we would get that's a kind of on a smaller scale from not using livestock. So if we're not raising livestock, we have a little bit less of an impact on our, it's a little bit more eco-friendly. because instead of having all of these facilities that would allow us to raise the livestock and then have the methane gas that they produce from their own metabolism go into the greenhouse gases and contribute to global warming on a very, very minute scale. Nothing like coal mining or fracking or the other things that we do. But nevertheless, it is a small benefit for our environment. And in turn, we have all these possible cons, nothing that's definite, where we have, this ethical issue of who's going to be controlling all of this power of acting the role of God in that moment and being able to literally produce living tissue.
Yeah, and you say talking about, playing the role of God, but like, who's to say, instead of like emergency situations, what if we're creating these, if like our organs are just aged or, we're old and we just want to keep replacing it? Will we reach a point where we can, become immortal in a sense? Just constantly replacing old cells?
Man, that's a good idea. That's a whole nother conversation. We should do a show on that too. Can we achieve immortality through stem cell ink that we're going to be using as bio ink to print different organs that are then going to be failing? We could produce a whole nother body. That's insane. All right, we'll have to get to that later. But in the meantime, we do know that currently we have other kinds of technology that we use for our the things that we eat, and these include genetically modified organisms. So we have genetically modified organisms, and people right now are in this stage of being in what Christina Torres from Skinno app, who we're gonna have next week on the show, what she likes to call as chemophobia. So they have a phobia of chemicals, of anything where it sounds like things were added or things were done to whatever they're gonna eat. And I think, to a certain extent, that's a healthy skepticism to apply to what you're eating. But now with GMOs, I think that's where it kind of crosses the line because, in my opinion at least, genetically modified organisms, and also in the opinion of science, there's no evidence that proves that there are any negative effects from eating genetically modified organisms. And almost all the fruits and vegetables that you are consuming have been genetically modified, usually through artificial selection, meaning you pick the fruits and vegetables that you think are the best, they have the qualities that you want, and you continue to artificially breed them until you get this plant that is now the perfect plant. So we've done this to not only crops that we eat, but also, let's say, marijuana, one of the biggest grossing crops right now. And in fact, the demand for marijuana has grown past that of ice cream, which to me was a little surprising because I love ice cream and it's the summertime. But I guess America loves marijuana. And with this marijuana plant, we went from having a certain level of THC, the active ingredient, of let's say 6%, to now almost all of them have about 20 to 30% THC. So we have a fivefold increase in the thing that we wanted. The same thing happened with our tomatoes, our strawberries, our corn. Everything that we have is genetically modified. So there's no reason to be afraid of that. And if you don't have celiac disease, there's no reason to be afraid of gluten. And now let's get back to kind of like another type of genetic modification, which is CRISPR. So in this last 2 minutes of the show, I'll sum up this idea that we're going to be able to edit genes in a living human being and other living things. While the person is alive, we can change their genetic code using a technology called CRISPR. So CRISPR recently just got this bad publicity because an article came out that said that the edits that were made weren't just specifically the ones that they wanted, but also some unexpected mutations had happened. But that article that came out in June 2017 that said that was corrected in July of 2017 and then retracted in the end of March 2018. So they retracted it because they found out in a follow-up research study that actually there was no unexpected mutations that can be directly attributed to your CRISPR technology. They were using a model of a disease in a mouse, and it was an inbred mouse, meaning that they were they were related. It was incest, basically. So the genetic mutations could have happened from many different reasons, not just CRISPR. So there's no conclusive evidence that that is the reason why. So now bringing it back to this whole idea of, can we print out meat, and should we print out meat rather, and should we eat it? I'm still kind of undecided. It seems like from the responses that we're getting from the people who have called in and the people who have commented on Facebook Live, this is something that is not going to immediately catch the eye of the public. And I know DJ and I are on the same page that I'm not putting it in my body until other people have tested it, and I've known that long term it has no negative effects.
Definitely. I mean, I just see it as being some kind of trend. Like, I can see it as like the fake meat challenge on Instagram or something, you know?
Let's start the hashtag from that.
No.
We'll beat them to the punch.
Yeah, but I don't know. Most companies, like you mentioned, are saying within the year that they're ready and want to put out this technology. Really, it's scary.
Let's see what happens. Only time will tell. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope that you have learned something new about this lab meat, and now you can have an educated opinion on the matter. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video if you were Facebook Live streaming. We appreciate your support, and we love being here for you, Harlem. Please take care of yourself. This show and every show that we do here in Health in Harlem is dedicated to the memory of Miss Gloria Thomas. And we miss you, Dr. Selby and Reed and intern Alec. We hope that they'll all be here on the show next week. Thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of Health in Harlem here on WHCR 90.3 FM. Please let me know if you have any other questions and if you have any suggestions for future topics. We'd love to interact with you guys and give you exactly what you want to learn about. And please don't touch the dial. We have Vinny B of the Vinny B Showcase coming in right now to give you nothing but the best Rasta hits. Thank you once again.
Radio station
for you and your WHCR
90.3 FM.
The livest party in the whole universe.
The voice of Harlem.
Good morning, everybody. This is Joanne Rosario. Let's go to church with Dalton Anderson and morning praise on
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Tina Dixon, Tina Dixon, Tina Dixon, Tina Dixon, Tina Dixon.
Hi, I'm Vinny B of the Vinny B Showcase. Tune in every Thursday from 8 to 12 midnight for some solid cultural roots music and some sweet lovers rock. Also, informative interviews and giveaways. Right here on the Vinny B Showcase every Thursday, 8 through 12 midnight on WHCR 90.3 FM. Peace.
Said I'm black. You got to be conscious. You got to be righteous. Can't you see the sign of the time we're living in? Got to use it every day. It's what we need today. Whoa. You got to use it every day. wisdom and knowledge will guide you through. Don't you be the devil tool. No, you can't guide a people without a vision. You shall surely go astray.